Does this look familiar to you? Or this? Or this? How about this? Please tell me you're not still using Excel spreadsheets and Google Documents to manage your marketing campaigns, or solely relying on PDFs that you get after your marketing campaign has been live for a few weeks. If you're seeing this video, I know you're in charge of a lot of advertising dollars that need to make a big impact for your brand. I've worked for numerous agencies. I work for Facebook, I work for Instagram. I've met with the largest brands and agencies in the world, and I promise you, everybody's going through this right now. The same problems, the same challenges, how to visualize a marketing campaign and see it all in one place. That's because marketing is evolving. If you look at Don Draper back in the 1960s, his job was to create an ad campaign that was a video to run on television and then a print ad made into billboards and magazines. And that's it. Martini lunch, go home early, repeat. And I love this slide in our presentations that shows the juxtaposition between what Don Draper had to go through in the 1960s and this chart that Intel recently came out with, which shows the connected devices from 1960 to 2020. And what it actually shows is that all of this stuff coming online is going to result in 31 billion connected devices by the year 2020. This is probably the best visualization of the pain point that our software solves for, which is you come up with an idea, it gets sent to all these different teams and agencies and partners around the building or the city or the state or the world. And by the time you end up getting everything out there and 2 weeks into the campaign, your creative is everywhere. You've got value add coming back from your media team. You've got your in-house agency giving you content, your several different agencies across all your different formats. If you look at the evolution of marketing over the past 5 to 10 years, it used to be that as new ad formats popped up, they replaced each other. I always date myself at this example, but if I think about when Classmates.com and Friendster came online, those were revolutionary. I could find a way to connect to people I knew. I could see how my friends were connected to each other, and that was amazing. But it didn't take long for MySpace to come along. MySpace crushed those two things. Of course, we know the story. Facebook came along and crushed MySpace. What's happening now is that these dots aren't replacing each other anymore. So when you have these platforms that are seemingly coming out of nowhere, and you see headlines like Snapchat passes Facebook in daily video views, or Pokemon Go gets more daily users than Twitter and then disappears, these things are gonna keep popping up. And I saw the data when I worked at Facebook every week come in, which was more people for more time on more devices and more platforms than ever. And the trajectory is only gonna continue up and to the right. And this chart is really the pretty version of what I'm talking about. And in actuality, it looks something more like this, right? This tangled mess of all these platforms that are changing rules and teams that are changing heads and agencies decide to partner or get bought out by someone else. And so this constant motion of what your marketing's doing. And that's a direct juxtaposition to how fast marketing teams are growing. I like to compare that to a very slow growth over time for the amount of manpower. You're tasked with delivering solid work quickly across a growing number of platforms, partnering with different people, don't disrupt the productivity, plan for the future, review the past, and don't lose sight of the present. And that is a huge undertaking. And here's a stat from Gartner that I love, which talks about the implementation and core execution of what that innovation is, right? So when you think about coming up with an effective ad campaign or an idea that you have to market your company, this study from Gartner shows that for every $1 that enterprises are going to invest in innovation, there's an additional $7 in core execution. I think a lot of people think that's the other way around. Spend a lot of money and time up front, come up with something great, and it's just going to work. What the industry has done is given you choice. There's no lack of choice. Starting in 2011, where you had 100 different choices for marketing technology, the number of marketing technology options has doubled and tripled every single year. And then if we look at what's going on coming into 2017, there are 3,500 plus different options for marketing technology. And those break into different categories across email, social, e-com, workflow, etc. It doesn't change the fact that it is overwhelming and there's a lot to think about here. What I've found more often than not is that brands know exactly what they need to do, it's just about executing. And so when the path is clear, sometimes they're given this crazy complex set of tools that not everybody knows how to use, and it actually overcomplicates things. People are forced to use archaic solutions, going back to that Excel spreadsheets, Google Documents, Smartsheets, PowerPoint, building these things manually when a lot of times there are some issues with that, right? It could not be scalable across your organization. You have version control issues. It's software that's built for accounting, or you're limited on file type. Sometimes people are just resorting to the analog version of print this thing out and put it on the wall. But again, how scalable is that? How can you share with your partners and your agencies and the people you need to continually work with on an ongoing basis? Printing things out is only going to get you so far. So what we did was we actually created something that actually capitalizes on the behavior that was already happening. We've taken this content calendar into the modern world and created something very useful. And this is one of our partner screens from a company called Cinemassive here in Atlanta, but it does work across all these different screens as well. So you can see that it works on tablets and desktop computers, and you can put it on various monitor sizes. It's responsive design. But when setting out to build a piece of software like Atomized, there are 3 really important things we had to keep in mind. Number 1, we want to give people the ability to see the whole picture. And I love using this example of the Game of Thrones war table where, you can see a map of the entire war as opposed to the individual battles. And you've seen these tables before, right? Civil War movies and Egyptian war movies, and you see different generals in different wars. Using that strategy map to take a step back and look at how this individual battle is going to affect the whole war. Another thing that this view provides is a view into how your customers see your campaign, right? Your customers aren't thinking in terms of silos like your department's set up. They're experiencing all this stuff in the wild. They see a bus shelter, they might see something in print, they're on their phone, but then they might catch a glimpse of an animated, screen somewhere. So they're looking at this stuff all over the place. A very close number 2 to the ability to be able to see everything is it's gotta be easy to use. So we say that Atomized is built for collaboration, which means from the CMO to a junior intern, everybody in between, the more people that can easily adopt a piece of software, the more useful and effective it is in an organization. And then number 3, one thing that shocked me to my core about pitching this thing to hundreds of companies at this point is that no 2 companies have anywhere near the same workflow. And what I mean by that is you've got different titles and documents and department names, and you've got different ways that agencies work together and different approval symbols, etc. So all of these things ladder up to the fact that different teams work in different ways and there's no one solution. And so what Atomized does is layers on top, and we integrate with anything. So you might have your email team using Marketo or Eloqua, and you might have a project management suite and a digital asset manager, and you might have a data scientist who likes to upload his findings to a Dropbox. We don't want to disrupt that. We don't want to change what's working already. We want to enhance what's not working, give that visibility across all those teams. Another thing to look at is return on investment. We get asked all the time, how do I get my money back? What's the value proposition of this software? We do have those kind of soft ROI metrics of you're reducing wasted time and maximizing brand value and mitigating risks, sort of that gap analysis of what's not running and should be, increasing accountability. Each piece of asset inside of our system has a light, user flow in it, much like a feed of who's doing what and when. And then optimizing impressions is really more of a media conversation. And you think about these really smart companies out there developing algorithms to programmatically distribute the media, spoken like a true creative guy, those media placements are only as good as the creative that layers on top of them. They have to work together. And so making sure that the containers that are purchased through media are definitely delivered on from a creative perspective. But sometimes people say that's not enough, right? Sometimes it's like, well, that doesn't show me how I save money. So we do offer the ability to kind of analyze with our partners how we're actually saving them money on a hard ROI metric. So taking roles and user types and numbers of users and average salary for people, being able to calculate those out for the more of those numbers focused people that want that hard proof of how we're actually providing value. This is our client slide. I can't show you our client names because we have very strict rules. When you work with the largest brands in the world, all of the details get written very carefully in the contracts, and one of them is do not publicly show that you work with us, that we're a client of yours. I wish I could talk about them. Believe me, it would make my job a lot easier here. So I constantly am talking about how easy it is to use Atomized. And I think that's important. Again, first and foremost, being able to use something and spread it across an organization is very important. But we also have advanced features. Custom API integrations is just the tip of the complexity of what we can accomplish, from project briefs to social feeds and text notifications and tagging and filtering, be able to filter segmented views and be able to get exactly what you want out of the system. We've built some really powerful features in for some of our brands. And not everybody uses every feature, but at the end of the day, to be able to provide that level of complexity for those people who need it once you do dive deep is important to us. We are SOC 2 compliant, hosted on Amazon. We've been put through the ringer from the toughest security teams in the world with global companies. And I promise you, once your security team is able to peek behind the curtain a little bit, it makes the process much smoother that we're buttoned up in that way. In addition to having great technology, we also have a team that supports all of the services around what it takes to onboard a calendar for hundreds of people, 10 people, 30 people, whatever is an organization, the training, the onboarding, the constant communication about needs, the how do I work this into my current workflow? How do I make us better constantly? It's a true partnership. There are many different client services, it's just the tip of what we offer. This slide's about our roadmap. I'm not gonna get into that on this pitch, but generally, this is where I talk about what's coming in the next 1 quarter, 2 quarter, 3 quarters, to be able to get people excited about what's actually in development and what's launching and when. And then lastly is our pricing slide. Again, I'm not gonna run through the pricing right now because it definitely varies for each of our partners, depending on how many people, how many connections. Do you want us to connect to some proprietary system do you have? Do you want us to just turn it on and check in every once in a while? The pricing varies. I promise you, it's reasonable pricing. Our base package starts around $15,000 a year for enterprises. And that's it. That's kind of a quick overview of how we talk about Atomized with our customers. I'd love to give you more details. Please reach out in any way that's comfortable to you. You can message us here on this platform. You can send me an email, chris@atomized.com. You can hit our website, fill out the lead form, whichever way is comfortable for you to get a hold of us. But if you're not quite ready to reach out or have a conversation with us, we actually have created a series of videos called Tips for Buying Marketing Software. And you can find that at atomized.com/tips. Very easy, about 12 videos in there, things to keep in mind when you're looking for your marketing tech. Not really Atomized specific, but just in general, some things to consider. You know, we hear a lot of the same things over and over from people. So offering that up for the ability for you to kind of make sense of it all. But again, please reach out when you feel comfortable. We'd love to hear from you. Have a good one.